I was excluded from the raise after bringing in 60% of the revenue. But then half clients vanished overnight. It's funny how life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. I remember sitting in that cold fluorescent-lit conference room, staring at the whiteboard where numbers and percentages danced like silent taunts. My name wasn't on the list. Not even close. The raise announcement had been made, 6 figures for 2 of my colleagues, both deserving in their own right, but neither of them carried nearly as much weight as I did for this company. 60% of our revenue last quarter came from clients I brought in, nurtured, and fought tooth and nail to keep happy. And yet, here I was, watching others step into the spotlight while I faded into the background. The meeting ended with handshakes, congratulations, and forced smiles. I stayed seated, pretending to review notes on my laptop until everyone left. When the door clicked shut behind the last person, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It wasn't just disappointment, it was something deeper, sharper, a mix of frustration, betrayal, and exhaustion. I had poured my soul into this job, working late nights, skipping weekends, and sacrificing pieces of myself to make sure we succeeded. Yet here I was, invisible again. When I first joined the company 3 years ago, it was nothing more than a fledgling startup trying to find its footing in an overcrowded market. Back then, there were only 8 employees crammed into a tiny office space above a bakery. The smell of fresh bread wafted through the vents, masking the chaos of our early days. We were all hands on deck, scrambling to pitch ideas, chase leads, and prove ourselves in an industry that chewed people up and spit them out without a second thought. I wasn't supposed to be the star player. Honestly, I didn't think I could handle sales. Salespeople are supposed to be charming, confident, and smooth-talking, qualities I never saw in myself. But necessity breeds invention, and desperation forces you to dig deep. Our CEO, Greg, pulled me aside one day after another failed pitch. "You're smart," he said, his voice low but firm. "Figure out what these clients want before they even know they want it. Be relentless." So, I became relentless. I spent hours researching every potential client, their business models, pain points, competitors, strengths, weaknesses. I learned to read between the lines during conversations, picking up on subtle cues most people missed. I tailored presentations so precisely that clients often joked I must have been spying on their internal meetings. They weren't wrong. I treated each relationship like a puzzle waiting to be solved, and solving those puzzles became my obsession. One by one, the deals started coming in. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. By the end of my first year, I had secured partnerships with 3 major accounts that transformed our trajectory. That's when things began to shift, not just for the company, but for me personally. Suddenly, I wasn't just the quiet girl in the corner anymore. People noticed me, respected me, relied on me. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful, valuable, like I mattered. But power can be fleeting, especially when it's tied to external validation. As the company grew, so did the team. New hires arrived, fresh faces eager to climb the ladder. Some of them were brilliant, others less so, but all of them seemed to get along better with Greg than I ever did. He liked charisma, charm, and confidence, the kind of qualities that filled rooms and commanded attention. Me? I preferred staying behind the scenes, letting results speak for themselves. Still, I kept pushing forward. Every new client I landed felt like proof that I belonged here, that I was essential. Until the day of the raise announcement, when reality slapped me across the face. Sitting there in silence, surrounded by empty chairs, I realized something painful. Being indispensable doesn't always mean being valued. The next morning, I walked into the office feeling heavier than usual. My heels clicked against the tiled floor, echoing louder than normal. Everyone seemed to be buzzing about the raises, congratulating the recipients and speculating about who might be next. No one mentioned my name. Not once. Greg called me into his office later that afternoon. His desk was cluttered with papers and coffee cups, a stark contrast to the sleek minimalism of the rest of the office. He gestured for me to sit, his expression unreadable. "I wanted to talk to you about yesterday," he began, leaning back in his chair. "I know you've been killing it with the clients. You're a rock star." I braced myself, unsure if this was leading somewhere good or bad. "But," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "we need to focus on leadership now. Building teams. Mentoring others. Your skills are incredible, but we need someone who can inspire the group, not just bring in numbers." Inspire the group? Was he serious? I bit my tongue, forcing myself to nod politely instead of saying what I really thought. Leadership isn't about titles or pep talks, it's about action. About showing up when it matters most. If anyone understood that, it should have been him. By the time I left his office, my chest felt tight. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it didn't matter. I still had work to do, clients to manage, goals to crush. But doubt crept in anyway, whispering cruel truths I couldn't ignore. What if I wasn't enough? What if no amount of hard work would ever earn me the recognition I craved? That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying Greg's words over and over in my head. By dawn, I had convinced myself to move past it. There would be other opportunities, other chances to prove myself. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, everything changed. It started with an email from one of my biggest clients. The subject line read, "Re-evaluation of partnership." My stomach dropped as I opened it, scanning the brief message. Essentially, they were reconsidering our contract due to internal restructuring. Polite corporate jargon for "we don't need you anymore." At first, I assumed it was a fluke. These things happen occasionally, right? But then another email came in. And another. Within 48 hours, half of my key accounts had either terminated their contracts or put them on hold indefinitely. Panic set in as I scrambled to figure out what went wrong. Had I missed something? Offended someone? Made promises we couldn't deliver? Nothing added up. These clients had been loyal for years, praising our services and referring us to others. Their sudden departure felt orchestrated, deliberate almost. A sinking suspicion took root in my mind. Sabotage. I confronted Greg immediately, demanding answers. He listened patiently, nodding along as I listed off the lost accounts. When I finished, he sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "Look, I'm sorry this happened," he said finally. "But maybe it's a sign. Maybe it's time to rethink your approach." My blood boiled. My approach? Are you kidding me? I built these relationships from scratch. Without me, none of this would exist. He held up his hands defensively. "I'm not denying your contributions. But sometimes, change is necessary. Maybe focusing too much on individual success comes at the expense of the greater good." His words hit like a punch to the gut. Greater good? Was he implying I was selfish? That my efforts somehow harmed the company? I stormed out of his office, fuming, unable to process what was happening. Over the next few days, whispers spread throughout the office. Rumors flew about why so many clients had left, and naturally, some pointed fingers at me. Colleagues avoided eye contact, pretending not to notice the tension radiating off me. Even my closest allies distanced themselves, unwilling to risk association with whatever mess I was caught in. Desperation clawed at my throat. I needed to fix this, not just for the company, but for myself. Losing those clients wasn't just a professional blow, it was personal. Each one represented months, sometimes years, of hard work. Sacrifices. Relationships. Walking away wasn't an option. As I sat alone in my apartment that evening, staring blankly at my laptop screen, a strange calm washed over me. Fear and anger gave way to clarity. This wasn't just about proving Greg wrong or salvaging my reputation, it was about reclaiming control. About reminding myself of who I was before any of this happened. I opened a blank document and started typing. Ideas flowed faster than I could capture them, each word fueling a fire inside me. I wasn't going to sit back and wait for someone else to decide my fate. If the company didn't value me, fine. But I refused to let anyone take away the skills, knowledge, and connections I had built over the years. By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in weeks, I felt alive again. What happened next would change everything, not just for me, but for the entire company. The plan I had outlined on my laptop wasn't just a strategy to win back the lost clients, it was a blueprint for reinvention. I realized that staying within the confines of the company's expectations would only lead me down the same path, overlooked, undervalued, and ultimately expendable. If I wanted to reclaim not just my career but also my sense of purpose, I needed to take matters into my own hands. I began by reaching out to the clients who had left. Not with formal emails or scripted apologies, but with raw honesty. One by one, I called them, explaining how their departure had blindsided me and asking what went wrong. Some were hesitant at first, unwilling to share details they felt might burn bridges. But others opened up, revealing something shocking. Several of these companies had been approached directly by competitors offering deals too good to refuse. Deals structured in ways eerily similar to the ones I had crafted for our firm. It didn't take long for the pieces to fall into place. Someone inside the company, or connected to it, was using my strategies against me. Sabotage wasn't just a suspicion anymore, it was a reality. Each revelation stoked the fire burning inside me, fueling both my anger and my resolve. This wasn't just about losing revenue or proving Greg wrong, it was about justice. But as much as I wanted to confront whoever was behind this betrayal, I knew acting impulsively would only make things worse. Instead, I decided to play the long game. I started documenting everything: client communications, internal meetings, project timelines, anything that could serve as evidence if push came to shove. Then I turned my attention outward, focusing on rebuilding trust with the clients who still believed in me. One name stood out among the chaos: Rachel Chun, CEO of Apex Dynamics, one of our earliest and most loyal partners. When she pulled her account, it hit harder than any other loss because of the personal connection we shared. Rachel hadn't just been a client, she'd become a mentor and confidant over the years. Losing her felt like losing family. When I reached out, she agreed to meet, not in a boardroom or over Zoom, but at her favorite cafe downtown. The moment I walked in, I saw her sitting by the window, sipping tea and scrolling through her phone. She looked up, surprised, then smiled faintly when she recognized me. "I wasn't sure you'd actually show," she admitted as I slid into the seat across from her. "I wasn't sure I should," I replied honestly. "But here we are." For the next hour we talked, not as client and consultant, but as two women navigating an industry rife with politics and power plays. Rachel listened intently as I explained my suspicions about the sabotage and shared snippets of my documentation. To my relief, she didn't dismiss me outright. In fact, she seemed intrigued, even sympathetic. "You've always been fiercely independent," she said finally, setting her cup down. "But independence doesn't mean doing everything alone. Sometimes, it means knowing when to ask for help." Her words lingered with me long after our meeting ended. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility of forging new alliances, not just with Rachel, but with others who might see value in what I could offer outside the constraints of my current role. It was risky, yes, but staying put felt riskier. Back at work, tensions continued to rise. Greg avoided me whenever possible, delegating tasks to junior team members and excluding me from key discussions. My once thriving network within the company now felt like a ghost town. Colleagues whispered behind closed doors, speculating about whether I'd quit or be fired. Even the clients I managed to hold on to seemed wary, questioning whether sticking with me was worth the trouble. And yet, amidst the isolation, something unexpected happened: clarity. Without distractions or obligations tying me to the company's agenda, I found freedom. Freedom to experiment, to innovate, to dream bigger than I ever had before. I started drafting proposals for projects I never would have pitched under Greg's watchful eye, bold ideas designed to disrupt the market and redefine success on my terms. Rachel became my sounding board, offering feedback and encouragement while subtly introducing me to influential contacts in her orbit. Through her, I met investors, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who challenged me to think beyond traditional boundaries. Slowly but surely, a new vision began to take shape, a vision rooted not in survival, but in transformation. Meanwhile, cracks within the company grew wider. With half its revenue stream gone overnight, leadership scrambled to mitigate damage. Layoffs loomed, morale plummeted, and whispers of restructuring echoed through the halls. Greg, once confident and commanding, now appeared frazzled and defensive. During one particularly heated meeting, he snapped at a junior employee for questioning his decisions, leaving the room in stunned silence. Watching him unravel filled me with conflicting emotions. Part of me felt vindicated, as though karma had finally caught up to him. Another part mourned the loss of the scrappy startup culture that had initially drawn me to the company. Whatever remained of that spirit was fading fast, replaced by fear and desperation. Still, I couldn't afford to dwell on the past. Every day brought fresh opportunities, and fresh challenges. As I worked tirelessly to rebuild relationships and refine my vision, I attracted attention from unlikely sources. A former colleague reached out, confessing they'd grown disillusioned with the direction of the company and wondering if there might be room for collaboration elsewhere. An investor expressed interest in backing a venture I'd mentioned during a casual conversation, unaware I hadn't fully committed to launching it yet. Even Greg, desperate to salvage his reputation, hinted at reconsidering his stance toward me. Each interaction forced me to confront difficult questions. Was I ready to leave the safety net of a steady paycheck behind? Could I handle the pressure of starting something entirely new? And perhaps most importantly, did I truly believe in myself enough to bet on my own potential? As weeks turned into months, the answer to those questions became clearer. I wasn't just fighting for recognition or validation, I was fighting for autonomy. For the chance to create something meaningful, something that reflected my values and vision rather than someone else's. The journey wouldn't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. With Rachel's support and a growing roster of allies, I took the first step toward making that vision a reality. I submitted my resignation letter late one Friday afternoon, timing it so Greg wouldn't have a chance to respond until Monday morning. The act itself felt surreal, like ripping off a bandage I'd worn for years. Painful, yes, but liberating. That weekend, I spent hours finalizing plans for my next move. By Sunday evening, I sent out a single email to a select group of trusted contacts, announcing my decision to launch a consulting firm focused on empowering businesses to thrive authentically. Within hours, responses poured in: congratulations, offers of partnership, requests for meetings. Momentum built faster than I anticipated, carrying me forward despite lingering doubts. On Monday morning, I walked into the office one last time. Boxes packed, head held high, I ignored the stares and whispers as I made my way to Greg's office. He looked up from his desk startled, as I placed a copy of my resignation letter in front of him. "This isn't goodbye," I said firmly. "It's just the beginning." His expression shifted from surprise to something resembling admiration, a fleeting acknowledgement of the battle I'd fought and the strength it had taken to walk away. Whether he understood the full weight of my words didn't matter. What mattered was that I did. As I stepped out of the building for the final time, sunlight streaming down on my face, I felt lighter than I had in years. Ahead lay uncertainty, challenges, and endless possibilities. But for the first time, I faced them not as someone else's employee, but as the architect of my own destiny. What happened next would test every ounce of courage, resilience, and creativity I possessed, but it would also prove that sometimes, walking away is the bravest step you can take toward finding your true path. The weeks following my resignation were a whirlwind of activity. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, forcing me to adapt quickly to life as an entrepreneur. Setting up my consulting firm required more than just business acumen. It demanded patience, persistence, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. I spent countless hours drafting business plans, securing funding, and building a brand from scratch. There were moments when self-doubt crept in, whispering that maybe I had made a mistake. But every time those thoughts surfaced, I reminded myself of why I'd left in the first place, to reclaim my power and chart my own course. Rachel proved invaluable during this transition. Not only did she provide financial backing, but she also introduced me to a network of industry leaders eager to support my venture. One of them was Marcus Lane, a seasoned entrepreneur known for his ability to spot untapped potential. After hearing about my vision, he offered not just investment but mentorship, a lifeline I desperately needed. "You're onto something big," he told me over coffee one afternoon. "But remember, success isn't just about what you build. It's about who you become in the process." His words stuck with me, guiding me through the inevitable ups and downs of entrepreneurship. Building a team became my next priority. I knew I couldn't do everything alone, so I reached out to former colleagues who shared my values and passion for innovation. To my surprise, several agreed to join me, bringing their skills and expertise to the table. Together, we created a culture rooted in collaboration, transparency, and mutual respect, everything my old company lacked. Meanwhile, the fallout at my former workplace continued to unfold. Without the revenue streams I had established, the company struggled to stay afloat. Layoffs became inevitable, morale plummeted further, and clients began questioning its stability. Word spread quickly in our tight-knit industry, and soon enough, whispers turned into headlines. Greg's leadership came under intense scrutiny, with critics pointing fingers at his inability to retain top talent or maintain client relationships. One evening, as I scrolled through social media, I stumbled upon an article titled "The Rise and Fall of a Startup Darling." The piece dissected the company's rapid decline, citing internal mismanagement and poor decision-making as primary factors. A quote from an anonymous source caught my eye: "She was the backbone of that place, and they let her go. What did they expect would happen?" Reading those words stirred conflicting emotions within me. On one hand, vindication, that undeniable sense of "I told you so." On the other, sadness. For all its flaws, I had once loved that company. Watching it crumble felt bittersweet, like witnessing the end of a chapter one hadn't fully closed. Greg reached out shortly after the article went viral. His message was brief but telling: "Can we talk?" I hesitated before responding. Part of me wanted to ignore him entirely, letting karma take its natural course. But another part, the part that still believed in redemption, felt compelled to hear him out. We met at a quiet cafe near my new office. He looked older, wearier, the weight of failure etched into his face. "I messed up," he admitted after ordering 2 coffees. "Not just with you, but with everyone. I thought I could fix things without making waves, but all I did was sink the ship faster." His honesty disarmed me. While I didn't forgive him outright, I understood where he was coming from. Running a business is hard, especially when ego gets in the way. Still, understanding doesn't equate to absolution. "You had your chance," I said softly. "And now it's mine." He nodded, accepting my response without argument. Before leaving, he handed me a small envelope containing a letter of recommendation. "For whatever it's worth," he murmured. I thanked him, though neither of us believed it would make much difference. Our paths were diverging permanently, and there was no turning back. As months passed, my consulting firm gained traction. Clients flocked to us, drawn by our innovative approach and unwavering commitment to authenticity. Unlike traditional firms focused solely on profit margins, we prioritized long-term partnerships built on trust and shared goals. This philosophy resonated deeply with businesses tired of transactional relationships and empty promises. Success didn't come overnight, but when it did, it felt earned. Every milestone, our first major contract, hiring our 10th employee, celebrating our 1-year anniversary, was a testament to resilience and determination. Along the way, I rediscovered parts of myself I thought I'd lost: creativity, confidence, joy. Entrepreneurship wasn't just about building a business, it was about rebuilding myself. Rachel remained a steadfast ally throughout this journey, cheering me on even as she tackled her own challenges. During one particularly grueling week, she invited me to dinner at her home. Over steaming bowls of homemade soup, she raised a glass and said, "To finding your voice, and using it wisely." Her toast brought tears to my eyes, reminding me how far I'd come since that dark conference room where it all began. Looking back, I realized the real victory wasn't defeating Greg or proving anyone wrong. It was learning to define success on my own terms. Walking away from that toxic environment taught me that true strength lies not in holding on, but in knowing when to let go. And starting anew showed me the beauty of vulnerability, the courage to embrace uncertainty and trust in my ability to navigate it. Today, my firm thrives as a beacon of hope for businesses seeking meaningful change. We've expanded globally, forged partnerships with some of the biggest names in the industry, and inspired countless others to follow suit. Yet none of this would have been possible without the lessons I learned along the way: resilience in the face of adversity, humility in moments of triumph, and gratitude for every step, good or bad, that led me here. Life has a funny way of testing us, but it also rewards those who refuse to give up. As I sit in my office overlooking the city skyline, surrounded by people who believe in me as much as I believe in them, I know I made the right choice. No title, raise, or recognition could ever compare to the freedom of owning my story. And so this chapter closes, not with bitterness or regret, but with hope. Because sometimes, losing half your clients overnight isn't the end of the world. Sometimes, it's the beginning of something extraordinary.